Hermetica. In the Phaedrus, through the mouth of Socrates, Plato declared, referring to the Thoth, the Egyptian equivalent of Hermes, that the story is that in the region of Naucratis in Egypt there dwelt one of the old gods of the country, the god to whom the bird ibis is sacred. His own name begins Thoth. He it was who invented numbers and arithmetic and geometry, and astronomy, not to mention drafts and dice, and most important of all, writing. 90. Iamblichus maintained that Plato and Pythagoras derived their philosophy from the wisdom of the Egyptians found on the pillars of Hermes. Manetho was also thought to have derived his knowledge of the history and religion of the ancient Egyptians from secret hieroglyphics that had been inscribed on two pillars, called the Pillars of Hermes, that preserved this knowledge from before the flood. 91. This story reflects a similar legend reported by Josephus about Seth, the third son of Adam, also often identified with Hermes. Josephus recounts that Adam had forewarned his descendants through Seth that sinful humanity would be destroyed by a flood. According to Josephus, the descendants of Seth, identified by some with the sons of God of the Bible, also were the inventors of that peculiar sort of wisdom which is concerned with the heavenly bodies, and their order. 92. In order to preserve their astrological science and philosophy, they raised two pillars, one of brick and the other of stone, on which were inscribed the keys to their knowledge, which, Josephus claimed, remain in Egypt to his day. However, that knowledge which was falsely attributed to the Egyptians should be more properly assigned to the Magi. As is rarely acknowledged, Egypt came under Persian rule with the conquest of Cambyses in 525 BC, and remained as such, except for an interruption of 60 years, until the conquest of Alexander at the end of the 4th century BC. In Alien Wisdom, The Limits of Hellenization, Arnaldo Mamigliano remarked, I could not indicate a dividing line between what was thought to be Egyptian and what was thought to be Chaldean, even in the muddled form in which Chaldean and Zoroastrian became synonymous. 93. As Cumont indicated, the first Greco-Egyptian astrologers did not invent the discipline they claimed to teach the Hellenic world. They used Egyptian sources going up to the Persian period, which were themselves at least partially derived from ancient Chaldean documents. Traces of this primitive substratum still survive in our much later texts, erratic blocks transported onto more recent soil. When we find mentions there of the King of Kings or satraps, we are no longer in Egypt but in the ancient Orient. We limit ourselves to noting that in all appearances, the priests who were the authors of Egyptian astrology stayed relatively faithful to the ancient Oriental tradition. 94. Quite a number of collections of Hermetic writings must once have existed, the earliest of which was the text addressed to a king Nechepso by the priest Petosiris. Some texts were gathered together at an unknown date in what is called the Corpus Hermeticum, which still exists. Another collection was made by John Stobaeus in the 5th century AD, and most of it has been preserved. We know little of three others, one used by the Christian writer Lactantius, another quoted by Iamblichus in the early 4th century, and one of 15 books cited by the Christian theologian Cyril of Alexandria in the early 5th century AD. Two others, longer texts stand alone. The first is the Asclepius, preserved in a Latin translation, possibly of the 3rd century AD. It is known and cited by Saint Augustine. The second is a dialogue between Isis and Horus, entitled Korekos Muo, which may mean daughter of the world. Stobaeus contains extracts from it. Although presented in an Egyptian framework, scholars have recognized that the Hermetic works contain very few genuine Egyptian elements. Francis Yates noted that, in any case, they were certainly not written in remotest antiquity by an all-wise Egyptian priest, as the Renaissance believed, but by various unknown authors, all probably Greeks, and they contain popular Greek philosophy of the period, a mixture of Platonism and Stoicism, combined with some Jewish and probably some Persian influences. 95. The most famous text is the first text of the Corpus Hermeticum, the Poimandras, in which the author tells us that he has been carried away in the spirit and met a superhuman being, Poimandras. The work begins with an outline of the creation of light and separation of darkness, the separation of the waters above from waters below, the separation of land and water, the creation of heavenly bodies, then birds, fish, and land animals. Ch. Dodd, in the Bible and the Greeks, his extensive study of Jewish influence on the Hermetica, has determined that, while the cosmogony of Poimandras is substantially a combination of Platonic and Stoic doctrines of a type familiar in the Hermetica, it is presented through the medium of a myth obviously similar to the creation myth of Genesis. 96. In a sequence similar to the Poimandras, according to Genesis 1:1-2, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. These similarities were also recognized by Michael Psellos, a Byzantine scholar of the 11th century AD, who remarked of the author, "This wizard seems to have had more than a passing acquaintance with Holy Writ. Making an eager go of it, he tries his hand at the creation of the world, not scrupling to record the cherished Mosaic expressions themselves." Cyril of Alexandria, a Christian theologian of the 5th century AD, noted, "This Hermes of Egypt, although he was a theurgist, ever sitting in the temple precincts near the idols, had the good sense to acquire the writings of Moses, even if he did not use them at all blamelessly or correctly, having but a part of them. The one in Athens who collected the 15 books called Hermetic made himself a record of this in his own writings." 97. Among the subjects within the large literature under the name of Hermes were alchemical works that represented a system of magic, based on an assumed astrological affinity between the stars and certain minerals or plants. In Hellenistic times, the founder of the alchemical art was thought to have been Osthanes, to whom several works on the nature of plants and minerals were ascribed. One of the first alchemical works, written by a certain Bolus of Mendes in the 2nd century BC, was attributed to Democritus, the reputed student of Osthanes. The doctrine of the alchemists was based on Jewish legend. According to Democritus, it was the law of the Egyptians that nobody must divulge these things in writing. The Jews alone have attained a knowledge of its practice, and also have described and exposed these things in a secret language. 102. In an early alchemical manuscript, a priestess who calls herself Isis, and who addresses her writings to her son Horus, declares that she owed her knowledge to the first of the angels and prophets, Amnael, and explains that she acquired her wisdom as a reward for intercourse with him. There was also Mary the Jewess. Her teachings were reserved for Jews, for speaking of the holiness of her book, she said, "Do not touch the stone of the sages, for you are not of the seed of Abraham." 103. Other important alchemists were Theosbia, and a woman who called herself Cleopatra. The most notable fragment left behind by Cleopatra was a single page of symbolic diagrams. One of its images showed the famous symbol of the Ouroboros, a serpent swallowing its tail, with the phrase "the one is the all" inscribed within the circle. 104. The brother of Theosbia, Zosimos of Panopolis, of the end of the 3rd and beginning of the 4th century AD, was probably the most important of the Alexandrian alchemists. Zosimos elaborated on the subject and gives the name of a very early master of the art, the mysterious Chems. It was thought that Chems had written a book which he called Chema, with which the sons of God had given lessons to the daughters of men. From Chems and Chema was derived Chemia, a name which was given to the art itself. The Greek word chemia was the designation for alchemy until the Arabs added to it the article al. 105. 1. Alexander the Great. JewishHistory.org. Retrieved from https://www.jewishhistory.org/Alexander-the-Great. 2. Kaufmann Kohler and Louis Ginsberg. Aristotle in Jewish Legend. Jewish Encyclopedia. 3. Contra Apianum, 2. 17. 4. Ibid, I-22. 5. Kohler and Ginsberg. Aristotle in Jewish Legend. 6. Daniel. 11. 3. 7. Kohler and Ginsberg. Aristotle in Jewish Legend. 8. Alexander the Great. JewishHistory.org. Retrieved from https://www.jewishhistory.org/Alexander-the-Great. 9. Kohler and Ginsberg. Aristotle in Jewish Legend. 10. Ibid. 11. Book I, 6. 12. Arthur Darby Knock. Conversion, the Old and New in Religion from Alexander the Great to Augustine of Hippo, Oxford, Oxford University Press 1969. 13. Irwin R. Goodenough. Jewish Symbols in the Greco-Roman Period. Ed. Andabergud. Neusser, Jacob, Princeton, University of Princeton Press, 1992. 14. Franz Cumont. Oriental Religions in Roman Paganism, Montana, Kessinger Publishing Company, 1911, p. 63. 15. Hans-Dieter Betz. The Greek Magical Papyri in Translation, including the Demotic Spells, Chicago, Chicago University Press, 1996, p. Silvislai. 16. Menippus, or, The Descent into Hades, 6-9. 17. The Roman History of Ammianus Marcellinus, during the reigns of the emperors Constantius, Julian, Jovianus, Valentinian, and Valens. Book XXII, ch. 16, 20. 18. Isidore Singer, etal, eds. Sibyl. The Jewish Encyclopedia, New York, Funk and Von Yals, 1901-1906. 19. Fragments of the Sibylline Oracles. Sacred-texts.com. Retrieved from http://www.sacred-texts.com/cla/sib/sib15.htm. 20. Pausanias, X.12. 21. Barry J. Blake. Secret Language, Oxford University Press, 2011, p. 20. 22. Frederick Coney Beer. Philo, About the Contemplative Life, Oxford, Clarendon, 1895, pages 292-97. 23. C. Gershom Scholem. On the Kabbalah and its Symbolism, New York, Schocken Books, 1965, p. 45. 24. On the Contemplative Life, 11, 89. 25. Strabo. Geographica October 3, 19. 26. Arnobius. The Case Against the Pagans, Book 5.6. 27. Livy. History of Rome, 39.8. 28. Cumont. Oriental Religions in Roman Paganism, p. 64. 29. Ibid, p. 65. 30. De Mensibus, 83t. 31. Saturnalia, Book I, 18, 20. 32. Plutarch. Symposiacs, 4, 6. 33. The Histories, 5.5. 34. Quaestiones Conviviales, Book 4, questions 6.1-2, quoted from the Ancient Mysteries Sourcebook, p. 228. 35 p. 147. 36 Skolem. Kabbalah, New York, Meridian, 1978. 37 Panarayan, January 1, 16. 38 F. Coney Beer. Philo, pages 292-93. 39 Christian Ginsberg. The Essenes and the Kabbalah, London, Routledge and Keegan Paul, 1955, pages 2-17. 40 Marcia Keith Scutchard. Restoring the Temple of Vision, Kabbalistic Freemasonry and Stewart Culture, Leiden, Brill, 2002, p. 18. 41 Kaufman Kohler. Essenes, Jewish Encyclopedia. 42 Josephus. Antiquities of the Jews. 1510, 4. 43 Ibid. 44 Kaufman Kohler and Louis Ginsberg. Kabbalah. Jewish Encyclopedia, 1906. 45 Ibid. 46 Ibid. 47 Chap. LXI 10. 48 Chap. Slayath. 49 Moshe Idel. Kabbalah, New Perspectives, New Haven, Yale Up, 1988, p. 167. 50 Book of Daniel, 413, 17, 23. 51 Book of Enoch, 7:10. 52 Ibid, 8:1-8. 53 Jeffrey Burton Russell. The Devil, Perceptions of Evil from Antiquity to Primitive Christianity, Ithaca, New York, Cornell University Press, 1987, p. 193. 54 Gershom Scholem. Kabbalah, New York, Meridian, 1978, p. 10. 55 Song of Solomon 1:5. 56 Deborah Pardo Kaplan. Tracing the Antinomian Trajectory within Sabbatan Messianism. Kesher, A Journal of Messianic Judaism, Issue 18, Winter 2005. 57 Livingstone. The Dying God, The Hidden History of Western Civilization. 58 Scholem. Origins of the Kabbalah, p. 25. 59 pt. I, FOL 243b. 60 Scholem. Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism, p. 53. 61 Attilio Mastrochenk. From Jewish Magic to Gnosticism, Tübingen, Moore Seebeck, 2005, p. 47. 62 Scholem. Origins of the Kabbalah, p. 23. 63 Scholem. Kabbalah, New York, Meridian, 1978, p. 31. 64 Ibid, p. 376. 65 Pearson, Judaism and Egyptian Christianity, Minneapolis, Fortress Press, 1990, p. 14. 66 Moshe Idel. Kabbalah, New Perspectives, New Haven, Yale University Press, 1988, p. 31. 67 Hans Jonas. The Gnostic Religion, The Message of the Alien God and the Beginnings of Christianity, Boston, Beacon Press, 1963, p. 33. 68 Scholem. Kabbalah, p. 21. 69 Ibid, p. 15. 70 Cited in John Dillon. The Middle Platonists, Ithaca, New York, Cornell University Press, 1996, p. 25. 71 Dillon. The Middle Platonists, p. 118. 72 Somnius, 1.35-36. 73 Moshe Idel. Kabbalah, New Perspectives, p. 133. 74 De Professor, quoted from Mead, Thrice Greatest Hermes, p. 165. 75 John Dillon. The Middle Platonists, Ithaca, New York, Cornell University Press, 1996, p. 164. 76 Cumont. Astrology and Religion, p. 88. 77 Boyce and Greenet. Zoroastrian Pseudepigrapha, A History of Zoroastrianism, Volume 3, p. 504. 78 Contra Celsus. 451 equals Father 1c, quoted from Dillon, The Middle Platonists, p. 365. 79 Eusebius, Preparation for the Gospel, 9, 6, p. 411a. 80 Dillon. The Middle Platonists, p. 185. 81 Ibid, p. 191. 82 Isis and Osiris, chapter 46. 83 Kabbalah, New Perspectives, p. 39. 84 Ch3, quoted from Dillon. The Middle Platonists, p. 381. 85 Damascius. Life of Isidore, cited in Emma C. Clark, John M. Dillon, Jackson P. Hirschbell, I. M. Blishus, De Mysteriis, Society of Biblical Literature, 2003, pxx. 86 Hymn to the Magna Mater, 172d. 87 Johann P. Culianu. Psychonodiae, A Survey of the Evidence Concerning the Ascension of the Soul and Its Relevance, Leiden, E. J. Brill, 1983, p. 12. 88 Elements of Theology, Proposition 209, cited in Culianu, Psychonodia, p. 12. 89 R.T. Wallace. Neoplatonism, Duckworth, 1972, p. 107. 90 Phaedrus, 274d. 91 Syncellus. Book of Suthes, T1b. 92 Josephus. Antiquities of the Jews, 1.68 to 70. 93 Alien Wisdom, p. 144. 94 Franz Cumont. L'Egypte de Astrologues, Poussos, Pards, 1937, p. 22 to 3. 95 Francis Yates. Giordano Bruno and the Hermetic Tradition, Routledge, 2014, p. 3. 96 C. H. Dodd. The Bible and the Greeks, London, Hodder and Stoughton, 1954. p. 100. 97 cited in Brian P. Copenhaver. Hermetica, the Greek Corpus Hermeticum and the Latin Asclepius, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1992, p. Sleesly. 98 On the Mysteries. Chap. 4. 99 Hippolytus. Refutation of All Heresies, v. 2, Mead. Thrice Great Hermes, v. 1, p. 179. 100 Dodd. The Bible and the Greeks, p. 245. 101 Richard Cavendish, ed. Man, Myth and Magic, The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Mythology, Religion, and the Unknown, New York, Marshall Cavendish, 1995. p. 1199. 102 quoted from Patai. The Jewish Alchemists, p. 51. 103 Seligman. A History of Magic and the Occult, New York, Gramercy Books, 1997, p. 80. 104 Ibid, p. 66. 105 Ibid, p. 79. To excuse the obvious Neoplatonic influence in the Hermetic works, Iamblichus argued that, for the books which are circulated under the name of Hermes contain Hermetic opinions, though they frequently employ the language of the philosophers, for they were translated from the Egyptian tongue by men who were not unskilled in philosophy. 98. However, the Hermetic works must be primarily seen as expressing philosophical ideas. According to the Poimandras, light, or fire is spirit, nous or mind. The Logos is the Son of God, at one with the Father, mind. Next, mind gives birth to a second spirit, the Demiurge, who creates the seven administrators or the planets, embracing in their orbit the visible universe. Their administration is called fate. The original spirit also gives birth to the original man, or archetypal man, to whom is assigned the world of the stars. To the Hermetic philosopher, Zosimus of Panopolis, the primordial man is the Son of God, or the first man, whose name is Thoth. The Chaldeans and Parthians and Medes and Hebrews call him Adam, which is by interpretation virgin earth, and blood-red earth, and fiery earth, and fleshy earth. And these indications were found in the book collections of the Ptolemies, which they stored away in every temple, and especially in the Serapeum, when they invited Aeneas, the chief priest of Jerusalem, to send a Hermes, who translated the whole of the Hebrew into Greek and Egyptian. 99. Though clearly derived from the mythology of the mysteries, ch. Dodd maintained that, it should be clearly understood that we have no reason whatever for supposing that the writers of the corpus at any rate were devotees of any of these religions in the same sense of practicing the ritual which was their essential nature. 100. However, the Poimandras prescribes a mode of spiritual ascent through the seven planets, and into the eighth sphere, where the soul of the initiate is united with God. According to the Poimandras, man must first undergo a spiritual death and resurrection, followed by an ascent through the spheres of the seven planets, leaving behind him in each of them part of his being, the part which the original man had received from the stars. Finally he will be reduced to just himself, where he can enter the eighth sphere, to join the powers assembled there. With them, he comes before the Father and enters God. The extremely influential Asclepius is a discussion between Hermes, Asclepius, Tat and Ammon. Following a cosmological exposition of the universe and man's purpose in it, the Asclepius then turns to the subject of theurgy, or of man's ability to create gods, a subject that was regarded by the Neoplatonists as comprising the wisdom of the Egyptians. Our ancestors, declares the Asclepius, discovered the art of creating gods. They made statues, and because they could not create souls, they conjured the souls of demons or messengers and introduced them by holy and godly mysteries into the images of the gods, so that they received the power to cause good and evil. 101. The first Asclepius and the first Hermes were among the gods created in this way, and they are the ancestors of the speakers in the dialogue. Isis was also made in this way. These gods are approached through sacrifices, hymns and praises.